I have decided to put on the record some of my observations as far as they pertain to how we look at the question of disaster preparedness and mitigation, and how we must begin to direct our minds at creating the environment to trigger what I want to refer to as an attitudinal change in our people, to create the desired effect of protecting us against ourselves. We have on our statutes a variety of legislations that seek to ensure that we begin to place very serious attention to the question of environmental protection and conservation. We also recognize that there are a variety of building codes and other forms of legislations that are on our statutes that are not being enforced by our people, by those in authority, and by extension the wider citizenry. So many a times you have past governments, successive governments, and current government, and functionaries of such governments, public servants, technicians, and persons who are part of civil society making representations as to how we need to conduct our affairs in terms of keeping our environment clean. Stop littering. Stop dumping garbage in areas that are not designated for such. How we need to take care of our environs. It goes far beyond creating that so-called enabling environment to ensure that we get a greater value for money in order that we be able to attract greater revenue from the tourist industry, like Carnival and Carnival and those other cruise liners. The debacle of Shopping Day 2013 created the very epitome of a frontal expose as to how we as a people, the nature island of the world, the Commonwealth of Dominica, have over the years paid absolutely no serious regard to the question of maintaining our environments. This is not only a governmental problem, because the state has to see how it's going to get 45 million Eastern Caribbean dollars, some of which will go towards cleaning up the environment, repairing houses, providing material and financial resource to persons who lost their belongings and other possessions and the property. Those monies would have been directed in other areas, such as education, such as sports, such as culture, such as health, and so on. The indiscriminate cutting of trees, the callous and malicious disregard for the litter laws, the dumping of litter in ravines and rivers and streams and backyards, which clog water paths, drains, create a monstrosity of problems. We mustn't just look at the debacle of shop in the Roseau South as just a mere trough, climactic phenomena. It goes much more deeper than this. I was able to survey the Everton Estate, Madrell, Forbower, and Castle Comfort areas to make my passionate, objective analysis of things. It wasn't just the landslides and the tons of debris and persons in difficulty, those who were stranded, and how Papa God put a pause on our so-called Christmas euphoria that doesn't have Christ in it, but more commercial aspect of our culture, pushing the religiosity and the spiritual element to the back burner. But it goes beyond this. The question which I have asked myself, and I have made representation of it with regards to the Harlem Manifesto, is the very vexing question of an alternative transportation route in the Newton area, as far as it pertains to the Newton bypass from Citronia end to the Subrooks end. This is critical, very much critical. Could you well imagine that if a situation arises, God forbids, that we are to be relocated en masse from the Roseau South and immediate environs to safer grounds in light of a tsunami warning or pending eruption of a volcano? The mass chaotic scenes that we saw on the 24th of December would be tenfold. We have to look at those things seriously. This isn't a joke. It's about mitigation. It's about relocation. It's about the security of the lives of our people. What plans do we have in place? We cannot continue to depend on this Lyle Coco, Victoria Street, Castle Comfort, Citronia, Newton route. We have to go beyond this. What plans do we have in place in terms of relocating masses of people from the south, tens of thousands of people from the south? What plans do we have to get them out of the south beyond just the mere road network? What about giving very serious consideration of using an additional alternative route via the sea, in addition to the much talked about and much needed Newton bypass? What about the development of the Charlotte Valley housing project that would provide a very important set of road networks, so the people who are stranded in Castle Comfort, Walhouse and Fortney would be able to get through town via Gwenville, from Gwenville, that is the Charlotte Valley Estate, into Kings Hill, from Kings Hill into Monbrose, from Monbrose into Bath Road, exiting between the two cemeteries, the public cemetery and the Roman Catholic cemetery, into Virgin Lane, into town. we have to begin to look at those possibilities. So persons who are coming, let us say, from the Fortney Citronnier end, could, upon arrival at the entrance of the Montego Bay area, just adjacent to the Fatima Church, could just go up that route by Getty, up that route into Gwenville, from there into Kingshill, and from Kingshill, Monbrose into town. This will ease up the burden and the chaos that would have been occasioned by virtue of the fact that we might have mass casualty situations and thousands of people from the entire south. A substantial portion of the Dominica's population will be trying to get to safer ground in the north and central of Dominica. These are very serious issues which the authorities must begin to look at. We cannot solely depend on the Gaza Strip in Newtown. We have to do better than this. We have to look at the development of the Charlotte Valley, Gwenville area, and a major part of this development will consist of housing and also the development of road networks from that area into other parts of the constituency, getting us out of the south into the Roseau Central area. Very, very, very serious. And this needs to be considered. We also have to pay attention to looking at the Anti-Litter Act and other legislations to begin to look at the question of garbage disposal in Roseau and other parts of Dominica. We cannot continue to operate in the way in which we are currently operating, having about 1 or 2 trucks, from Dominica Solid Waste Management Corporation. This is ridiculous. Roseau is expanding. Roseau is bursting. New developments continue to take place. Castle Comfort, Wall House. So there's a great demand on the Roseau City Council and the Dominica Solid Waste Management Corporation. So a new fleet of trucks is required to service the city. And this would ensure that persons would be less likely to involve themselves in the act of littering. And we have to get much more litter wardens. I do believe that the Dominica Cadet Corps must be given a statutory power so that members of the Cadet Corps can play the role of litter wardens, so that they would be able to give tickets to persons, have the power of inspection of properties, to ensure that persons begin to pay greater attention and show greater respect for the environment. These things need to be done. The police needs to also get deeper involved. And there ought to be an effort on the part of civil society, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Health, and other stakeholders to get much more actively involved in the campaign of protecting our environment, paying greater attention to the issue of conservation and environmental management. The whole question of afforestation is also very important. Protecting and developing water systems water tables, water catchment areas. So it is not just a matter of a river being clogged and persons are being made inconvenient. Thanks be to God, no one lost their lives. But it goes much more deeper than this. And we have to take those things very, very, very seriously. A whole host of tons of debris was deposited. Huge boulders, volcanic rocks, tarish, stones, gravels of different descriptions, sizes and shapes. And I am wondering what can be done with such in order to look at the question of building, walls, construction. These things have to be taken into consideration because stones are minerals. They are part of natural resources. They are not waste. God created no waste. So we have to think of ingenious ways to see how best we could use those resources, raw materials, have them crushed so that they could be used in terms of construction purposes on island. I also had the opportunity to take a walk alongside the Roseau River, and I recognize that there would be tons of natural deposits. Clearly, the Roseau River needs to be dredged. This is a matter of great urgency, and we have to begin to pay very critical attention to this, because if we don't, the lives of thousands of people along the Roseau River is likely to be affected, because the more deposition of natural debris that we have in the Roseau River by virtue of the erosion upstream, it means therefore the entire area would become even much more susceptible to the question of damage due to the question of flooding. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. I'm also concerned about the age-old problem of the very definite possibility of the proliferation of sinkholes throughout the Roseau Central area. Many persons would tell you over the years that any serious attempt at construction in the Roseau city, you would find a lot of underwater within the Roseau Central area. So the river wall from underpower to save a lot the market has to be looked at. We have to utilize the services of soil scientists, do the necessary scientific analysis and technical evaluation to begin to look at the question of the security of the Roseau Central area. I think it's a matter of urgency. I think it's an issue that we must put on the national agenda as a top priority. It's a disaster that is waiting to occur. So I'll just leave, this with us, and I hope that you find some sense in my 5 cents what I'm putting forward. And I am asking of us as a people to continue to thank God for saving our lives and our properties, most of us. And we have to actually make this attitudinal change for the betterment of our country.